The old photograph sits in a dusty corner of the university archives, its edges frayed and yellowed with age. The black and white image shows a group of children standing in front of a Victorian-era orphanage, their faces solemn and eyes vacant. The date scrawled on the back reads, June 18th, 1888. Professor Catherine Bennett adjusts her glasses as she carefully handles the photograph. Her research assistant, James, peers over her shoulder. "This is it, James. The Ravenwood orphanage photograph we've been searching for." James frowns, leaning closer. "Hard to believe this place has been forgotten for so long. What made you so interested in this particular orphanage, Professor?" Catherine's eyes remained fixed on the photograph. "My great-grandmother was an orphan in London during this period. She never spoke about her childhood, but after she passed, we found a journal with cryptic references to Ravenwood. I've been trying to piece together what happened there ever since." She places the photograph under the digital scanner, the machine humming to life. The image appears on her computer screen, significantly enlarged. "The advancements in digital photography analysis are remarkable," Catherine says, typing commands into the software. "We can now see details that would have been impossible to detect even a decade ago." As the image quality improves, Catherine focuses on the faces of the children. 18 boys and girls, ranging from perhaps 5 to 13 years of age, dressed in identical gray uniforms, standing perfectly still. Behind them looms the imposing Ravenwood orphanage, a Gothic structure with pointed arches and dark stone walls. "Look at their expressions," James whispers. "It's like they've seen things no child should see." Catherine nods, zooming in further. In the Victorian era, orphanages were often harsh places, but something about Ravenwood was different. It closed suddenly in late 1888, and all records of what happened there seem to have been deliberately destroyed. As she enhances the image further, she notices something peculiar in one of the windows on the upper floor of the building. "James, do you see that?" She zooms in on the window. The pixelated image gradually becomes clearer. Both researchers lean forward, squinting at the screen. "Is that a face?" James asks, his voice hushed. Catherine adjusts the contrast. "Not just any face. Look at the eyes." Even through the grainy quality of the enhanced image, they can make out a pale face with eyes that seem to bore into the camera. The figure stands partially hidden behind a curtain, watching the children below. "We need to dig deeper," Catherine says, her voice resolute. "There's more to this story than a forgotten orphanage." London, 1888. The carriage wheels clattered against the cobblestone streets as 10-year-old Emily Winters stared out the window. Rain streaked down the glass, mirroring the tears on her face. Her black mourning dress, hastily altered to fit her small frame, hung loosely around her shoulders. 1 week ago, her parents had succumbed to typhoid fever, leaving her alone in the world. The solicitor sitting across from her hadn't spoken a word since they left his office. There were no relatives to take her in, no family friends to offer shelter. Her father's debts had consumed what little they had, and now she was being delivered to Ravenwood Orphanage. "We're here, child," the solicitor said, his voice devoid of emotion. The carriage stopped before a towering building of dark stone. Iron gates creaked open as they approached, revealing a courtyard where not a single blade of grass grew. The building seemed to reach toward the gray sky like skeletal fingers, its windows like vacant eyes staring down at her. A woman stood at the entrance, her posture rigid as an iron rod. Her black dress reached the ground, and her hair was pulled back so tightly that it seemed to stretch her pale skin. "Miss Winters, I presume," the woman said as Emily descended from the carriage. "I am Mrs. Blackwood, matron of Ravenwood Orphanage." Emily clutched her small valise, containing the only possessions she had left in the world. A photograph of her parents, a worn copy of Alice's Adventures in Wonderland, and a silver locket with a strand of her mother's hair. "Yes, ma'am," she replied softly. The solicitor tipped his hat. "The paperwork is in order, Mrs. Blackwood. The child is now in your care." Without another word, he climbed back into the carriage, which rattled away, leaving Emily alone with the imposing matron. "Follow me," Mrs. Blackwood instructed, turning on her heel and entering the building. The entrance hall was cold and dimly lit by gas lamps that cast long shadows across the stone floor. The air smelled of dampness and carbolic soap. The sound of their footsteps echoed as they walked down a long corridor. "At Ravenwood, we maintain strict discipline," Mrs. Blackwood explained as they walked. "You will rise at 5 o'clock each morning. Breakfast is at 6, followed by chores and lessons. You will address all staff as sir or madam. You will speak only when spoken to. Any infraction of the rules will result in punishment." Emily nodded silently, her eyes wide as she took in her surroundings. They passed a large dining hall where children sat in perfect rows, eating in complete silence. Their faces were gaunt, their eyes downcast. Mrs. Blackwood led her to a dormitory filled with iron beds arranged in precise rows. A thin mattress and a single woolen blanket adorned each bed. "This will be your bed," Mrs. Blackwood said, pointing to an empty bed near the window. "You will be provided with a uniform. Your current possessions will be stored away." Emily's hand tightened around her valise. "May I not keep my book and the photograph, madam?" Mrs. Blackwood's lips thinned. "Personal items are not permitted, child. They distract from the discipline we instill here." "Please," Emily whispered, her eyes filling with tears. "They're all I have left of my family." For a moment, something resembling pity flickered across Mrs. Blackwood's face. "You may keep the locket, worn beneath your uniform where it cannot be seen. The rest will be locked away. If you prove yourself well behaved, you may be permitted to look at them occasionally." Emily nodded, grateful for even this small concession. "Now change into your uniform," Mrs. Blackwood said, placing a folded gray dress on the bed. "Then report to the dining hall. Miss Hayes will show you your duties." After Mrs. Blackwood left, Emily changed quickly, slipping the silver locket under her high-collared dress. The uniform was scratchy against her skin, and the shoes provided were a size too large, but she dared not complain. As she was about to leave the dormitory, she noticed a small girl watching her from the doorway. The girl couldn't have been more than 7, with light brown hair plaited tightly and secured with string rather than ribbons. "Hello?" Emily said hesitantly. "I'm Emily Winters." The girl glanced nervously over her shoulder before stepping into the room. "I'm Lucy," she whispered. "Lucy Hammond. Miss Hayes sent me to fetch you." "Are there many children here?" Emily asked as they walked together down the corridor. Lucy nodded. 38 of us now, with you." "But—" She stopped, biting her lip. "But what?" Emily prompted. "Sometimes children disappear," Lucy whispered, her voice barely audible. "Mrs. Blackwood says they're adopted or sent to work as apprentices, but—" The sound of footsteps interrupted them, and Lucy fell silent immediately, her face paling. A tall man with a gaunt face and piercing eyes approached them. He wore a black suit and carried a silver-topped cane. "Ah, our new arrival," he said, his voice silky smooth yet somehow causing a chill to run down Emily's spine. "I am Dr. Bartholomew Crane, director of Ravenwood." Emily curtsied as she had been taught. "Good afternoon, sir." Dr. Crane studied her face with an intensity that made Emily want to shrink away. "Miss Winters, is it not? Recently orphaned by typhoid?" "Yes, sir," Emily replied, wondering how he knew the details of her parents' death. "Tragic," he said, though his tone conveyed no sympathy. "You seem a bright child. I'm sure you will adapt well to life at Ravenwood." His gaze shifted to Lucy. "Miss Hammond, I believe you have duties to attend to in the kitchen." Lucy curtsied quickly. "Yes, Dr. Crane. Right away, sir." As Lucy scurried away, Dr. Crane turned his attention back to Emily. "Miss Hayes will assign your duties. I expect you to be diligent and obedient. I have a particular interest in children who demonstrate exceptional qualities." Before Emily could respond, he continued, "You will find that Ravenwood offers opportunities not available in other orphanages. For those who prove worthy, there are special privileges." He reached out and lifted her chin with one gloved finger. "Yes, I think you might be one of the special ones. We shall see." With that, he turned and walked away, his cane tapping rhythmically against the stone floor. Emily stood frozen, an inexplicable sense of dread settling over her. Her present day. Catherine rubs her tired eyes, having spent hours examining the digitally enhanced photograph and cross-referencing it with the limited historical records she's been able to uncover about Ravenwood Orphanage. "I've found something," James calls from his desk. An article from the Times, dated November 1888. He reads aloud. "Mysterious circumstances surround orphanage closure. Ravenwood Orphanage has been shuttered following the unexplained disappearance of its director, Dr. Bartholomew Crane. Authorities report that several children have also gone missing, though officials claim they were relocated to other institutions." Catherine frowns. November 1888. That's just months after this photograph was taken. She points to the screen. "Look at this. I've identified most of the children using census records and orphanage admission logs I found in the city archives." But she pulls up a spreadsheet. "Of the 18 children in this photograph, I can only account for the fate of 7. The others seem to have vanished from all records after Ravenwood closed." James leans forward. "What about this face in the window? Could it be Dr. Crane?" Catherine shakes her head. I found a photograph of Crane from a medical journal published in 1885. It's not him. She pulls up another image on her screen. An austere-looking man with a full beard and spectacles. This is Dr. Crane. Whoever was watching from that window was someone else. She zooms in again on the face in the window, adjusting the clarity. There's something unusual about this figure. The proportions seem off. As the image becomes clearer, both researchers fall silent. The face watching the children is unnaturally pale, with features that seem somehow distorted. We need to find more records, Catherine says finally. There has to be more to this story. London, 1888. 2 weeks had passed since Emily's arrival at Ravenwood, and she had quickly learned the rigid routine. Rise before dawn, wash in cold water, make beds with military precision, breakfast of thin porridge, morning lessons, midday meal of bread and weak soup, afternoon chores, evening lessons, supper, prayers, and then silence until the following morning. She had also learned the unwritten rules. Never look directly at Dr. Crane when he observed their lessons. Never mention the sounds that sometimes came from the East Wing at night, sounds like weeping or, occasionally, muffled screams. And never, ever venture beyond the green baize door that separated the children's quarters from the mysterious upper floors. Despite the harsh conditions, Emily had found a friend in Lucy. They whispered together during chores, careful to avoid the watchful eyes of Miss Hayes or the even more fearsome Mrs. Blackwood. "Why does Dr. Crane watch us during lessons?" Emily asked one afternoon as they scrubbed the dormitory floor. "He never speaks, just observes and takes notes." Lucy's voice dropped even lower. "He's looking for special ones, children who learn quickly or have unusual talents." "What happens to them?" Emily asked, though something in her stomach twisted with dread at the question. Lucy's hand stilled on the scrubbing brush. "They get taken to the East Wing for special lessons. Some of them come back different, quiet, like they're not really there anymore. And some," she swallowed hard, "some don't come back at all." Before Emily could ask more, the dormitory door opened and Miss Hayes entered. Unlike Mrs. Blackwood, Miss Hayes was young, perhaps in her early 20s, with kind eyes that seemed at odds with her strict demeanor. "Emily Winters," she called. "Dr. Crane wishes to see you in his study." Emily's heart pounded as she followed Miss Hayes through corridors she had not yet seen, up a flight of stairs, and toward the green baize door that marked the boundary of the forbidden area. "Miss Hayes," Emily whispered, "what does Dr. Crane want with me?" Miss Hayes hesitated, then spoke softly without turning around. "He reviews the progress of all new children. Answer truthfully, but be careful what you reveal about yourself." Before Emily could ask what she meant, they had reached a heavy oak door. Miss Hayes knocked, and then ushered Emily inside. Dr. Crane's study was unlike any room Emily had seen at Ravenwood. While the rest of the orphanage was Spartan and cold, his study was filled with books, strange instruments, and specimen jars containing things Emily couldn't identify. A large desk dominated the room, behind which sat Dr. Crane, writing in a leather-bound journal. "Ah, Miss Winters," he said without looking up. "Thank you, Miss Hayes. That will be all." Once Miss Hayes had left, closing the door behind her, Dr. Crane finally raised his eyes to look at Emily. His gaze was penetrating, as if he could see through her. "How are you finding Ravenwood, child?" he asked, gesturing for her to sit in the chair across from his desk. "It is very orderly, sir," Emily replied carefully. A thin smile crossed his lips. "Indeed. Order is essential for the development of young minds." He opened a folder that Emily recognized as the file Mrs. Blackwood had been keeping on her. "Your teachers report that you are exceptionally bright. You read at a level far beyond your years." "My father taught me, sir. He was a schoolmaster before he fell ill." Dr. Crane made a note in his journal. "And what else did your father teach you?" "History, arithmetic, some Latin," Emily replied. "And my mother taught me to play the piano." "Interesting," Dr. Crane murmured. "Tell me, child, have you ever experienced anything unusual? Dreams that seem to come true? Knowing things you couldn't possibly know? Hearing voices or seeing things others cannot see?" Emily hesitated, remembering Miss Hayes's warning. "No, sir, nothing like that." Dr. Crane studied her face for a long moment, then smiled again. "No matter. We shall discover your potential in time." He stood and walked to a bookshelf, selecting a volume bound in dark leather. "I want you to read this. It contains advanced mathematical principles. We shall see how quickly you grasp them." For the next hour, Dr. Crane tested Emily's knowledge, pushing her beyond what she had learned from her father, watching her intently as she struggled with increasingly difficult concepts. Finally, he closed the book. "Most impressive, Miss Winters. You have a natural aptitude that is quite rare. Emily felt a mixture of pride and unease at his praise. I believe you would benefit from special instruction, Dr. Crane continued. Starting tomorrow, you will come to my study after your morning lessons for additional education. Thank you, sir, Emily said, though her stomach knotted with apprehension. As she turned to leave, Dr. Crane spoke again. One more thing, Miss Winters. Have you noticed anything unusual since your arrival at Ravenwood? Anything that seemed out of place? Emily thought of the sounds from the East Wing, the children who disappeared, the face Lucy claimed to have seen watching them from the attic window. But something warned her to keep these observations to herself. No, sir. Nothing unusual. Dr. Crane's eyes narrowed slightly. Very well. You may go. As Emily left the study, she couldn't shake the feeling that she had just passed some sort of test, though whether she had passed by answering correctly or by lying, she couldn't be sure. Present day. Catherine's phone rings, startling her from her concentration. The screen shows it's her contact at the London Metropolitan Archives. Dr. Bennett, it's Malcolm here. I found something that might interest you. We were digitizing some old police records and came across a file related to Ravenwood Orphanage. It was misfiled in the records from the Jack the Ripper investigation. Catherine sits up straight. The Ripper investigation? But what would an orphanage have to do with that? That's just it, Malcolm replies. The investigating officer, a Detective Inspector Thomas Sullivan, seemed to believe there might be a connection, not to the Whitechapel murders themselves, but to something equally disturbing. I've sent the files to your email. After thanking Malcolm, Catherine quickly opens her email and downloads the attached files. James wheels his chair closer as she opens the first document. Report on the investigation of Ravenwood Orphanage, December 1888. She reads aloud. Following the disappearance of Dr. Bartholomew Crane and 11 children from Ravenwood Orphanage, I have conducted a thorough examination of the premises and interviewed the remaining staff and children. Catherine continues reading silently, her expression growing increasingly troubled. Finally, she looks up at James. Inspector Sullivan suspected that Dr. Crane was conducting some kind of experiments on the children, she says quietly. He found a hidden laboratory in the east wing of the building, with medical equipment, surgical instruments, and journals filled with notes in some kind of code. James frowns. What kind of experiments? Catherine shakes her head. The report doesn't specify. Sullivan writes that he was ordered to end his investigation by his superiors. He believed someone with influence was protecting Crane or covering up what happened at Ravenwood. She scrolls through more documents. Here's something, a statement from a staff member named Ellen Hayes. She reads aloud again. Dr. Crane selected children he deemed exceptional, those with unusual intelligence, talents, or other qualities he found valuable. These children would be taken to the East Wing for special instruction. Some would return changed, quiet, obedient, almost like sleepwalkers. Others never returned at all. Dr. Crane claimed they had been adopted, but no documentation ever existed for these adoptions. Other qualities? James echoes. What does that mean? Catherine continues reading. Listen to this. I believe Dr. Crane was searching for children with certain traits, not just intelligence, but something he considered supernatural. He spoke of untapped potential in young minds, of abilities that most would dismiss as fantasy. In his private study, I once glimpsed journals where he had documented what he called manifestations, instances where children had allegedly demonstrated unusual powers of perception or influence. James leans back in his chair. So what, he thought these orphans had psychic abilities or something? It seems so, Catherine replies. But there's more. Sullivan writes that when he searched the East Wing, he found rooms that had been converted into what he describes as cells, small chambers with reinforced doors and observation windows. And in one room, he found this. She clicks on an image file. It's a photograph of a page from a journal, covered in handwritten notes and diagrams. The handwriting is cramped and urgent, growing more erratic toward the bottom of the page. Among the notes are sketches of what appear to be human figures, but with distorted proportions. I can't make out most of the writing, Catherine says, squinting at the screen. But look at this passage that Sullivan highlighted. Subject EW shows the most promise. Latent abilities beginning to manifest after third treatment. Must proceed with caution. The others deteriorated rapidly after this stage. EW, James repeats. Can we identify which child that might be from the photograph? Catherine returns to the enhanced image of the Ravenwood orphans. I've already cataloged the children I could identify. She pulls up her spreadsheet. Here, Emily Winters, age 10. She's the girl in the front row, third from the left. She zooms in on the face of a solemn-looking girl with large, serious eyes. According to the admission records, she was placed in Ravenwood in June 1888 after her parents died of typhoid. And she pauses, checking her notes. She's one of the children who disappeared when the orphanage closed. Catherine pulls up another document from Sullivan's investigation. Here's a statement from Lucy Hammond, another orphan at Ravenwood. She was one of the children who remained when the orphanage was closed. She claims that Emily Winters was Dr. Crane's favorite, and that she was taken to the East Wing more frequently than any other child. James points to the screen. Look at this part of Lucy's statement. Emily started to change. She knew things she shouldn't know. Once she told me not to go to the kitchen because there would be an accident, and that same day, a shelf collapsed and would have hit me if I'd been standing where I usually worked. She said she could hear whispers from empty rooms, and sometimes when she was upset, objects around her would move. Dr. Crane was fascinated by her. He called her his greatest success. Catherine is silent for a moment, processing this information. The thing is, these kinds of reports weren't uncommon in the Victorian era. There was a fascination with spiritualism, the occult, and pseudo-scientific theories about the human mind. It would be easy to dismiss this as superstition or the fantasies of a traumatized child. But, James prompts, but Sullivan was a respected detective, not known for flights of fancy, and he believed something genuinely disturbing was happening at Ravenwood. She scrolls through more documents. Here's his final entry. I am convinced that Dr. Crane's experiments, whatever their nature, resulted in grave harm to the children in his care. That he has disappeared along with 11 of his subjects suggests he either fled to escape justice or met with some misfortune related to his work. I intend to continue this investigation unofficially, as my superiors have made it clear that official channels are closed to me. I believe the children who vanished may still be alive and in urgent need of assistance. Catherine looks up from the screen. There's nothing after that. No record of whether Sullivan continued his investigation or what he might have discovered. She returns to the photograph of the Ravenwood orphans, studying the face of Emily Winters. What happened to you? She murmurs. Her gaze shifts back to the window of the orphanage, where the mysterious face watches from behind the curtain. With the enhanced image, she can now make out more details. The unnaturally pale skin, the large dark eyes, the almost translucent quality of the features. And then she notices something she hadn't seen before. Zooming in further, she focuses on the girl identified as Emily Winters. In the original image, the children appear to be looking straight ahead at the camera. But with the enhanced resolution, she can see that Emily's eyes are not looking at the camera at all. She's looking up at the window where the face appears, and there's something in her expression, not fear, but recognition. London, 1888. 3 months had passed since Emily's arrival at Ravenwood, and autumn had given way to winter. Frost patterns formed on the dormitory windows, and the children huddled together for warmth during lessons, their breath visible in the cold air. Emily had changed during these months. The special lessons with Dr. Crane had become more frequent, sometimes occurring daily. She returned from these sessions exhausted, with headaches that made her vision blur. But she also returned with something else, something that both frightened and fascinated her. It had begun with small things, knowing when Mrs. Blackwood would enter a room before the door opened, sensing the emotions of the children around her as if they were her own, dreaming of events before they happened. Dr. Crane documented everything, his excitement growing with each new manifestation, as he called them. The treatments became more intense, bitter medicines that made her dizzy, hours spent staring at pendulums or crystal spheres, strange apparatus attached to her head that measured what Dr. Crane called cerebral energies. And then one day during a particularly intense session when Dr. Crane had pushed her harder than ever before, it happened. As pain lanced through her head, the glass beakers on his desk shattered simultaneously, sending shards flying across the room. Dr. Crane had been ecstatic, unmindful of the cut on his cheek from the flying glass. Extraordinary, he had exclaimed, scribbling furiously in his journal. Telekinetic manifestation under duress. The potential is even greater than I anticipated. That night, as Emily lay in her bed, Lucy crept over and sat beside her. You're changing, Lucy whispered. I can see it. The others can too. Emily turned her face to the wall. I don't know what you mean. Yes, you do, Lucy insisted. Something's happening to you. Something to do with Dr. Crane's special lessons. She hesitated, then added, Emily, I'm frightened for you. The others who went to the East Wing as often as you have, they're gone now. Emily rolled over to face her friend. What do you mean gone? Thomas Reed disappeared last month. Before him it was Sarah Collins and William Parker. Dr. Crane said they were adopted, but Lucy swallowed hard. But I saw Thomas the night before he vanished. He was crying. He said his head hurt all the time, that he could hear voices that weren't there, that Dr. Crane was going to complete the process, whatever that means. A chill ran through Emily that had nothing to do with the winter cold. Lucy, I need to show you something, but you must promise not to tell anyone. When Lucy nodded, Emily sat up and looked around to ensure the other children were asleep. Then she focused her gaze on Lucy's hairbrush on the nearby nightstand, concentrating intently, ignoring the now familiar pain building behind her eyes. She watched as the brush slowly rose a few inches into the air, hovering for a moment before settling back down. Lucy's eyes widened in a mixture of awe and terror. How did you do that? I don't know, Emily whispered. It started after Dr. Crane's treatments. At first it only happened when I was upset or frightened. Now I can control it a little, but it makes my head hurt. This is what he's doing to the children, Lucy realized aloud. He's trying to give you powers. Not all the children, Emily corrected. Only the ones he calls receptive. But Lucy, there's something else. Something worse. She lowered her voice even further. I've seen something in the East Wing, in a room Dr. Crane thinks I don't know about. It's not like anything I've ever seen before. What do you mean? Emily struggled to find the words. It looks almost human, but wrong. Too pale, too thin. Its eyes are too large, and when it looks at you, it's like it can see inside your mind. She shuddered at the memory. Dr. Crane speaks to it, consults with it. Once I heard him call it Master. Lucy's face had gone pale. The thing in the attic window, she whispered. Sometimes I see it watching us from up there. I thought I was imagining things. You're not, Emily assured her. And I think the children who disappear, the ones who don't come back, I think they're being taken to it. Lucy grabbed Emily's hand. We have to escape before it's too late. Emily nodded slowly. Yes, but not just us. We have to help the others too. Present day. Catherine stares at the photograph, a chill running down her spine despite the warmth of the office. James, I think I understand what happened at Ravenwood now. She pulls up Sullivan's report again. Look at this passage I missed earlier. In Dr. Crane's private quarters, I discovered correspondence with an individual identified only as M. The letters reference an ancient knowledge that M claimed to possess, techniques for awakening dormant abilities in select children. Crane apparently believed that M had demonstrated such abilities himself, to a degree that Crane found both convincing and terrifying. James frowns. So this M was what? Teaching Crane how to conduct these experiments? Or directing them, Catherine suggests. What if M is the figure in the window? What if Crane wasn't the mastermind but a disciple of someone or something else? She returns to Lucy Hammond's statement. Here, she mentions that Emily spoke of a pale man with large eyes who wasn't really a man at all. She said Emily called it the Master and claimed it had lived for centuries, feeding on the energy of special children. You can't seriously believe, James begins. I'm not saying I believe in supernatural entities, Catherine interrupts. But what if Crane did? What if he was manipulated by someone who convinced him they possessed supernatural powers? Someone who used his scientific reputation as cover for something much darker? She pulls up another document. This is from the medical examiner who inspected Ravenwood after it was closed. He found traces of numerous chemicals in the East Wing laboratory. Laudanum, chloral hydrate, various experimental compounds that weren't even properly documented at the time. If the children were being drugged, it could explain the manifestations Crane documented. Hallucinations, suggestibility, even seemingly paranormal experiences could be induced with the right combination of substances. And the children who disappeared? James asks. Catherine's expression darkens. I think they were victims of experimentation that went too far. Whether Crane was a madman who believed in supernatural powers or simply a cold-blooded researcher using orphans as test subjects, the result would be the same. She zooms in again on Emily Winter's face in the photograph. But what about Emily? Sullivan's last report suggests he believed some of the missing children might still be alive. Could she have survived after 135 years? James shakes his head. Obviously not. No, but perhaps her story did, Catherine says thoughtfully. I want to look at one more thing. She pulls up a database of newspaper articles and searches for Emily Winters in the years following 1888. Several results appear, and she clicks on the first one, a small item from a London newspaper dated April 1889. Child witness leads police to grim discovery, she reads. A young girl identifying herself as Emily Winters has provided information that led to the discovery of human remains in the basement of a recently closed orphanage. The remains are believed to be those of several children who were reportedly adopted but have no adoption records. The girl disappeared from police custody before she could be questioned further. Authorities are investigating possible connections to the disappearance of Dr. Bartholomew Crane, former director of the institution. Catherine sits back in her chair. She survived, she whispers. She escaped and led the police back to Ravenwood. But then she vanished again, James points out. Why wouldn't she stay to help the investigation? Fear, perhaps? Catherine suggests. Or maybe she didn't trust the authorities to protect her. Sullivan's reports indicate that someone with influence was protecting Crane or covering up his activities. She searches for more references to Emily Winters and finds another article from 1890. Mysterious benefactor establishes home for orphaned girls, she reads. A home for orphaned girls has been established in Cornwall by an anonymous benefactor. The home, called Winter Haven, provides education and care for girls who would otherwise be placed in state institutions. The first residents, numbering 11, arrived last month from various London orphanages. 11, James repeats. The same number of children who disappeared from Ravenwood with Crane. It can't be a coincidence, Catherine agrees. I think Emily not only escaped, but managed to help the other children escape too. And then she found a way to protect them. She searches for information about Winter Haven and discovers that it operated until 1950, when it was converted into a regular boarding school that still exists today. I need to contact this school, Catherine says, reaching for her phone. If Winter Haven was founded by Emily Winters, they might have records, photographs, something that could tell us what happened to her and the other children after they escaped from Ravenwood, London, 1888. The plan had taken weeks to prepare. Emily had used her growing abilities to learn the routines of the staff, to discover where keys were kept, to listen to conversations through walls. Lucy had gathered supplies, food, matches, a map of London that she had stolen from Mrs. Blackwood's office. Most crucially, Emily had used her sessions with Dr. Crane to gain information. Pretending to be fully committed to his experiments, she had asked questions, expressed interest in his work, flattered his ego, until he began to reveal more than he intended. The process is nearly complete, my dear, he had told her during their last session. Your potential has exceeded even my expectations. Soon, you will be ready for the final transformation. What will happen then, Dr. Crane? Emily had asked, hiding her fear beneath an expression of eager curiosity. You will transcend the limitations of ordinary humanity, he had replied, his eyes gleaming with fervor. You will become like the Master, a being of pure energy and intellect, unbounded by physical constraints. It is a great honor, Emily. Only the most exceptional children are chosen for this elevation. And the others who were chosen before me? She had asked. Where are they now? A shadow had crossed Dr. Crane's face. The transition is difficult. Not all are strong enough to complete it. But you, my dear, you are different. You will succeed where others have failed. That night, as the orphanage slept, Emily slipped from her bed. Using the ability she had hidden from Dr. Crane, the power to move objects with her mind, she unlocked the dormitory door without touching it. Lucy was already awake, as were the 10 other children they had selected to escape with them. Those who, like Emily, had been marked for Dr. Crane's special lessons, but had not yet undergone the more intensive treatments. Remember the plan? Emily whispered to the group. Stay together. If we're separated, meet at the church Lucy told you about. Don't make a sound until we're clear of the building. They moved silently through the darkened corridors, Emily leading the way, using her heightened senses to detect any approaching danger. When they reached the kitchen, Lucy distributed the food she had hidden, and each child tucked their small portion into their clothes. The final obstacle was the heavy back door, always locked and bolted at night. Emily concentrated, focusing her power on the mechanisms. Pain lanced through her head as the bolt slowly slid back and the key turned in the lock. Just as the door swung open, a voice spoke from the shadows. I knew you would try to leave us, Emily. Dr. Crane stepped into view, his face illuminated by the lantern he carried. Behind him stood Mrs. Blackwood, her expression grim. You've disappointed me greatly, Dr. Crane continued. After all I've done for you, all the potential I've helped you realize, this is how you repay my generosity. You weren't helping me, Emily replied, her voice stronger than she felt. You were using me, using all of us, for him. Dr. Crane's eyes widened slightly. You know about the Master. How much do you know, child? I know he's not human, Emily said. I know he feeds on us, on our fear, on our pain, on whatever power you awaken in us. And I know you're planning to sacrifice us to him, just like the others. A thin smile spread across Dr. Crane's face. Not sacrifice, Emily. Elevation. Transformation. The Master exists on a higher plane of consciousness. He has lived for centuries, gathering knowledge, growing stronger. With my help, he will usher in a new age of enlightenment. And you, my dear, were to be his crowning achievement. I won't let you take any more children, Emily declared, stepping protectively in front of the group. Dr. Crane sighed. I'm afraid you have no choice in the matter. He nodded to Mrs. Blackwood, who moved forward, reaching for the nearest child. Stop, Emily commanded, raising her hand. The pain in her head intensified as she focused her power, and Mrs. Blackwood suddenly froze in place, her eyes widening in shock as she found herself unable to move. Dr. Crane's expression shifted from confidence to uncertainty. Your abilities have progressed further than I realized, he murmured, but you cannot hope to oppose the Master. His power dwarfs your own. As if summoned by his words, a cold presence filled the room. The children gasped in unison as a tall, emaciated figure emerged from the shadows behind Dr. Crane. Its skin was so pale it seemed to glow in the darkness, stretched tight over an almost skeletal frame. Its eyes, large and black, contained no iris or pupil, only a void that seemed to pull at Emily's consciousness. The children are mine, it said, its voice like dry leaves rustling in wind. They belong to me. I have waited for them, prepared them, fed them my essence that they might become vessels for my being. Emily felt the creature's power washing over her like a tide, threatening to drown her will. Behind her, the children whimpered in fear. You have no power over us, Emily said, though her voice trembled. We don't belong to you. We don't belong to anyone. The creature tilted its head, regarding her with those empty eyes. You are different, it acknowledged. Stronger, but still a child. Still weak, still mine. It reached out a skeletal hand toward her, and Emily felt a crushing pressure in her mind, as if the creature were squeezing her thoughts in an iron grip. The pain was excruciating, but something deep within her refused to yield. Drawing on a well of strength she didn't know she possessed, Emily pushed back against the creature's mental assault. She thought of her parents, of the love they had given her, of the books her father had read to her, of the music her mother had taught her. She thought of Lucy and the other children, innocent and vulnerable depending on her. No, she said again, her voice stronger now. We are not yours. We never were. The pressure in her mind intensified, but so did her resistance. The air in the room began to vibrate with tension as two wills clashed in silent combat. Objects around them, pots, utensils, furniture, began to rattle and shake. Dr. Crane backed away, his face pale with fear. Master, perhaps we should— Silence, the creature hissed, not taking its eyes from Emily. She is mine. They are all mine. I have fed them, grown them, prepared them for centuries. Emily realized with sudden clarity what the creature meant. Ravenwood wasn't the first place it had harvested children. It had been doing this for hundreds of years, moving from place to place, using human collaborators like Dr. Crane to provide it with victims. Not anymore, Emily declared, and with a surge of determination, she gathered all her power and hurled it at the creature like a spear of pure will. The impact was catastrophic. The creature shrieked, a sound that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. The windows of the kitchen shattered outward. Dr. Crane was thrown against the wall, where he crumpled to the floor, unmoving. Mrs. Blackwood, released from Emily's hold, collapsed in a faint. The creature's form seemed to waver, its edges becoming indistinct, like smoke in a strong wind. You cannot destroy me, it rasped. I am eternal. I will find you again. Find others like you. Maybe, Emily acknowledged, but not today, and not these children. With a final push of her will, she forced the creature back, watching as its form dissipated into the shadows. Whether destroyed or merely banished, she couldn't tell, but she knew instinctively that it was gone, at least for now. Turning to the stunned children behind her, Emily spoke quickly. We need to leave. Now, before anyone else comes. As they fled into the night, Emily glanced back at Ravenwood one last time. The imposing building seemed smaller somehow, less frightening, but she knew the danger it represented wasn't over. The creature might return, Dr. Crane might survive, and there were other children still trapped inside, unaware of the fate that awaited them. "I'll come back for the others," she promised silently, "and I'll make sure no one ever uses this place to harm children again." Present day. Catherine's phone rings. It's the headmistress of the school that once was Winterhaven. "Dr. Bennett, I found something in our archives that might interest you." A letter, sealed in an envelope marked to be opened in 2023. It's dated 1950, signed by the school's founder, Emily Winters. Catherine's heart races. Emily Winters herself wrote it. In 1950? Yes, the headmistress confirms. She lived to be quite elderly, according to our record. She ran Winterhaven until her retirement, when the home was converted to a regular school. The letter was entrusted to each successive head of the school, with strict instructions about when it could be opened. "What does it say?" Catherine asks, her voice barely above a whisper. "I've scanned it and sent it to your email, but there's something else you should know." The letter came with a photograph, not the one you inquired about from Ravenwood, but another one taken many years later. It shows Emily Winters as an elderly woman, surrounded by children at Winterhaven. But there's something unusual about it. Catherine quickly opens her email and downloads the attachments. The letter appears first on her screen, written in a neat flowing hand. "To whom it may concern, if you are reading this, then the time I foresaw has come to pass. The creature that once called itself master has awakened again. I have sensed it stirring in my dreams, felt its hunger reaching across the void. Though I am long gone by the time you read these words, I have prepared for this moment. The children of Ravenwood were not the first to fall victim to this entity, nor will they be the last if it is not stopped. It feeds on the potential of special children, draining them of energy, of life, of soul. It has existed for centuries, perhaps millennia, moving from place to place when its activities are discovered, always finding a human collaborator to provide it with victims. I escaped its grasp in 1888, taking with me 11 others who had been marked for elevation. Dr. Bartholomew Crane, the creature's willing servant, pursued us, but never found us. We fled to Cornwall, where I established Winterhaven as a sanctuary for children with abilities similar to my own. Children who might otherwise be targeted by the creature or others like it. Over the decades, I have gathered knowledge, developed techniques to shield these children, taught them to control and hide their gifts. Most importantly, I have prepared for the creature's return, for it will return. Such entities do not die easily, if they can die at all. The photograph enclosed shows me with the last group of children I mentored before my retirement. Look closely at the window behind us. You will see what I saw only later, when the photograph was developed. It watches, always. But we are watching too. To whoever finds the creature's new hunting ground, you are not alone in your fight. Those of us who escaped Ravenwood have descendants, protectors who carry on our work. The children in this photograph, now grown, continue to shield others from the darkness. Seek them out. They will know when you have found the creature's trail. Look for the sign of the winter raven. It marks our safe houses, our agents, our allies. And remember, the creature can be driven back, weakened, forced into dormancy. I did it once as a child with newly awakened abilities. With preparation and knowledge, it can be done again. The battle is eternal, but hope remains as long as there are those willing to stand against the darkness. Emily Winters, founder of Winterhaven. March 12, 1950. Catherine opens the second attachment, the photograph mentioned in the letter. It shows an elderly woman with wise, kind eyes, surrounded by a group of children of various ages. They stand in front of a Victorian building that has been modified and modernized over the years. And there, in a window on the upper floor, is a familiar sight, a pale face with large, dark eyes, watching from behind a curtain. But there's something else in the photograph, something Catherine nearly misses. Each child wears a small pin on their collar, a black raven with outstretched wings perched on a snowflake, the sign of the winter raven. Catherine stares at the image, a chill running down her spine. Then she notices something on her own desk, a small envelope that wasn't there before. James is looking at it too, his expression confused. "Did you put that there?" he asks. Catherine shakes her head slowly and reaches for the envelope. Inside is a single card bearing an embossed image of a black raven perched on a snowflake, and below it, an address in London. Nothing else. She looks up at the photograph of Ravenwood Orphanage still displayed on her computer screen, at Emily Winters' solemn face, at the creature watching from the window. After 135 years, the hunt continues, and somehow Catherine knows she is now part of it.